My lawyer's voice cracked like a whip over the phone. $50,000 a day, Jake, starting tomorrow. I nearly choked on my coffee, staring at the muddy hole I'd dug for a pond that was supposed to save my dying ranch. The government had me in a chokehold, and all I wanted was to water my damn cattle. This wasn't just a finite, was a declaration of war. My name's Jake Harlan, and I've been running Harlan Ranch for 20 years, ever since my dad passed and left me 300 acres of cracked earth and stubborn dreams in eastern Oregon. The land's been in our family for 3 generations, but the drought hit us like a biblical plague. No rain for 2 years. My herd was down to bones, and the bank was circling like a vulture. So, I decided to dig a pond to catch what little runoff came from the hills. Simple, right? Wrong. The state called it an unauthorized water impoundment, and now I was staring down a barrel of fines that could bankrupt me in a week. The trouble started when Karen Flowers showed up. Karen, with her clipboard and her smug smile, was the local environmental compliance officer. She rolled up in a shiny SUV, her boots barely touching the dirt before she started quoting regulations like scripture. "Mr. Harlan," she said, her voice sharp as barbed wire, "this pond violates the Clean Water Act. Cease construction, or I'll bury you in fines." I laughed at first, thought she was joking. Who threatens a man for digging a hole on his own land? But Karen wasn't joking. She had the law, the state, and a vendetta I didn't understand yet. That same day, I met Sam Rivera, a young environmentalist who ran a local conservation group. Sam was all passion and no polish, faded jeans, messy hair, and eyes that burned with purpose. They'd heard about my pond from a neighbor and showed up to help, saying it could be a model for sustainable water use. "Jake, we can fight this," Sam said, pacing my porch. "The state's overreaching. Your pond could save wildlife, not just cattle." I liked Sam. They had guts, but I wasn't sure they could outsmart Karen's bureaucracy. The next morning, Karen was back with a cease and desist letter and a fine schedule that made my stomach drop, $50,000 per day until the pond was filled in. I stood by the half-dug hole, shovel in hand, and felt my blood boil. This wasn't just about water. It was about control. My land, my rules, or so I thought. Karen leaned in, her voice low and venomous. "You think you're above the law, Jake? Keep digging, and I'll make sure you lose everything." I wanted to shove that clipboard down her throat, but Sam grabbed my arm. "Don't give her the satisfaction," they whispered. "We need a plan." The plan came together fast. Sam rallied their conservation group, digging up case law and studies showing how small ponds could benefit endangered species like the Karen Flowers, a rare, delicate bloom that grew near my ranch and was, ironically, the namesake of my nemesis. Sam thought we could argue the pond was environmentally beneficial, maybe even get it permitted retroactively. I wasn't so sure, but I was desperate. My savings were gone, and the bank was breathing down my neck. If I lost the ranch, I'd lose my dad's legacy, my home, everything. We held a community meeting at the town hall, hoping to drum up support. I stood at the podium, my hands shaking as I explained how the pond was my last shot to save the ranch. The room was packed: ranchers, farmers, even some city folks who cared about the environment. Sam spoke next, their voice steady but fierce, laying out how the state's heavy-handed fines were crushing small farmers. The crowd cheered, but Karen was there too, sitting in the back with a smirk. When it was her turn to speak, she stood and dropped a bombshell. "Mr. Harlan's pond is diverting water from protected wetlands," she said, holding up a map that made my land look like a crime scene. "He's not a hero, he's a thief." The room erupted. Ranchers shouted at Karen, calling her a bureaucrat with no soul. Environmentalists yelled at me, accusing me of endangering the Karen flower. Sam tried to calm everyone, but it was chaos. I felt like I was drowning in my own town. That night, I sat on my porch, staring at the stars, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. Sam showed up with a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. "We're not done yet," Jake, they said, pouring me a shot. But you need to decide how far you're willing to go. I didn't answer. I didn't know. The next day, things got worse. Karen's office issued an injunction, freezing my bank accounts until I complied. I couldn't buy feed, pay my workers, or even fix the tractor. My neighbor, Tom, a grizzled old rancher who'd seen it all, warned me about Karen. She's not just doing her job, he said, spitting tobacco into the dirt. She's got a grudge. Her family lost land to ranchers years ago. This is personal. I didn't want to believe it, but it made sense. Karen's eyes held more than duty, they held hate. Sam and I dug deeper, literally and figuratively. We kept working on the pond at night, hiding from Karen's inspections. It was reckless, but I couldn't stop. Every shovel of dirt felt like defiance, like I was clawing back my life. Sam brought in a biologist friend, Lena, who confirmed the pond could support the Karen flower if we planted it right. This could be a win-win, Lena said, sketching out a restoration plan. But Karen wasn't interested in win-wins. She caught us one night, her flashlight blinding me as she screamed about violations. "You're done, Harlan," she shouted, snapping photos of the pond. "I'll see you in court." Court was a nightmare. The judge, a city guy who probably never stepped on a ranch, seemed to side with Karen from the start. She presented her case like a prosecutor, painting me as a greedy rancher stealing water from nature. Sam and Lena fought back, showing data on how the pond could help the ecosystem, but the judge wasn't swayed. "The law is clear," he said, banging his gavel. "Cease construction, or the fines double." I left the courtroom feeling like I'd been gut-punched. Sam was furious, promising to appeal, but I saw the writing on the wall. I was losing. Back at the ranch, the pond was half-finished, a muddy scar in the earth. My cattle were starving, and I was out of options. Sam suggested going public, posting on X, rallying the internet. "People hate government overreach," they said. "We can make this go viral." I wasn't sure about social media, but I was desperate. Sam posted a thread about my fight, tagging every rancher, farmer, and environmentalist they knew. The response was explosive. Thousands of likes, retweets, and comments calling Karen a tyrant. Save Harlan Ranch trended for a day. But Karen fought back, posting her own thread about how I was destroying endangered species. The internet split, half calling me a hero, half calling me a villain. The pressure was unbearable. My workers quit, scared of the fines. My girlfriend, Ellie, who'd stuck by me through everything, started pulling away. "Jake, this is killing you," she said one night, tears in her eyes. "Let it go." But I couldn't. The pond was more than water, no, it was my stand against a system that wanted to crush me. Sam was still in my corner, but even they were fraying. "We're running out of time," they said, their voice heavy. "Karen's got the state on her side, and they're not backing down." One night, alone by the pond, I found a single Karen flower growing in the mud. It was beautiful, small, white, fragile. I realized then why Sam cared so much. This wasn't just about me or my ranch. It was about something bigger, balancing human needs with nature's survival. But Karen didn't see balance. She saw a fight, and she was winning. The next morning, I got a call from Tom. "They're coming for you, Jake," he said. "Bulldozers. Karen's bringing the state to fill in your pond." I ran outside, heart pounding, and saw the dust cloud on the horizon. Karen's SUV led the charge, followed by heavy machinery. Sam was already there, standing in front of the pond with Lena, holding signs that read, "Save our land." I grabbed my shovel and joined them, my chest tight with rage and fear. This was the moment it all came crashing down. Karen stepped out, her face a mask of triumph. "Last chance, Harlan," she said, waving a new fine notice. "Fill it in, or we do it for you." I looked at Sam, their eyes pleading for me to stay calm, but I was done being calm. I planted my shovel in the ground and stepped forward, inches from her face. "You want my land? You'll have to bury me first." The air froze. The bulldozer drivers hesitated, watching us. Sam shouted, trying to de-escalate, but it was too late. Karen's smirk faded, replaced by something darker. She nodded to the drivers, and the machines roared to life. The bulldozers growled closer, their steel blades glinting like executioners' axes under the morning sun. My heart slammed against my ribs as I gripped my shovel, standing shoulder to shoulder with Sam and Lena in front of the pond. Karen stood across from us, her clipboard clutched like a shield, her eyes cold and unyielding. The air was thick with dust and the stench of diesel, but I wasn't moving. This pond, this muddy hole in my ranch, was all I had left of my fight. "Back off, Karen!" I shouted, my voice raw. "This is my land." She didn't flinch. "You had your chance, Harlan," she said, her tone flat but venomous. "Step aside, or I'll have you arrested." Sam grabbed my arm, their voice urgent. "Jake, don't do anything stupid. We can still fight this legally." But legal was a pipe dream now. The fines had already drained my accounts, and the state was rolling over me like a tank. Lena, trembling but defiant, held up her sign higher, "Protect our ecosystem." The irony wasn't lost on me. Karen, named after the flower we were trying to save, was about to destroy it all. The crowd from town had started to gather, drawn by the commotion and the ex-posts Sam had been firing off all week. Ranchers, farmers, even some of Karen's own colleagues stood at the edge of my property, phones out, recording everything. Save Harlan Ranch was trending again, but it felt hollow. Social media couldn't stop a bulldozer. Tom, my neighbor, pushed through the crowd, his weathered face set in a scowl. "This ain't right, Karen," he growled. "You're killing a man's livelihood over a damn puddle." The crowd murmured in agreement, but Karen didn't care. She waved the drivers forward. The first bulldozer lurched toward the pond. I acted on instinct, stepping in front of it, shovel raised like a weapon. The driver, a young guy who looked as scared as I felt, hesitated, his hands hovering over the controls. "Jake, move!" Sam yelled, but I couldn't. If I backed down now, I'd lose everything: me ranch, my pride, my dad's legacy. Lena dropped her sign and ran to my side, her voice cracking. "This pond could save the Karen flower. You're destroying your own cause, Karen." For a split second, I thought I saw doubt flicker in Karen's eyes, but it vanished as fast as it came. She turned to the driver. "Do it." The bulldozer's engine roared, and the ground shook as it rolled forward. I braced myself, ready to be crushed if it came to that, but Sam tackled me, pulling me out of the way just as the blade dug into the pond's edge. Mud and water sprayed everywhere, and the crowd gasped. Lena screamed, scrambling to save the single Karen flower we'd found, but it was too late. The blade churned it into the dirt. My vision blurred with rage and tears. That flower wasn't just a plant, it was proof we could have made this work, proof we could have balanced my ranch with nature. And Karen had just obliterated it. The crowd surged forward, shouting. Someone threw a rock, and it clanged off the bulldozer. Things were spiraling out of control. Karen yelled for order, but her voice was drowned out by the chaos. Sam was on their phone, live streaming to X, their voice shaking as they narrated. "This is what the state does to small farmers. They're destroying a man's life over a pond that could save endangered species." The video racked up thousands of views in minutes, but it didn't stop the second bulldozer from joining the first, tearing into the pond like wolves on a carcass. I broke free from Sam's grip and ran toward Karen, my shovel still in hand. "Why are you doing this?" I roared, close enough to see the sweat on her brow. "What did I ever do to you?" For the first time, she looked shaken, her clipboard trembling in her hands. "It's not personal, Harlan," she said, but her voice cracked, betraying her. It's the law. I didn't buy it. Tom's words echoed in my head: her family's lost land, her grudge against ranchers. This was personal, and we both knew it. Before I could say more, a sheriff's deputy appeared, hand on his holster. "Step back, Jake," he said, his tone firm but not unkind. "You're making this worse." Sam pulled me away again, whispering, "We'll sue. We'll go to the media. Don't give them a reason to lock you up." But I was past reason. I watched as the bulldozers filled in my pond, each scoop of dirt burying my hopes. The crowd was still shouting, some crying, others filming, but it felt like I was alone in the world, watching everything I'd fought for turn to mud. By noon, the pond was gone. Just a flat, churned-up patch of earth where my dream had been. Karen handed me a final notice: $150,000 in fines for continued violations. I crumpled it in my fist, staring at her. "You happy now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't answer, just turned and walked back to her SUV. The crowd dispersed, some patting my shoulder, others shaking their heads. Sam and Lena stayed, their faces grim. "We're not done," Sam said, but their voice lacked the fire it once had. Lena knelt by the ruined ground, searching for any trace of the Karen flower. There was nothing. That night, I sat on my porch, staring at the empty horizon. Ellie came by, her eyes red from crying. "I can't keep watching you destroy yourself, Jake," she said, her voice breaking. "You need to let this go." I wanted to argue, to tell her this was about more than a pond, but the words wouldn't come. She left, and I didn't stop her. Sam called, saying they'd found a lawyer willing to take our case pro bono, but it felt like grasping at straws. The ranch was slipping away, and so was I. The next week was a blur. The X campaign kept growing, with people donating to a legal fund Sam set up. We filed an appeal, arguing the pond's environmental benefits, but the state doubled down, citing new evidence of wetland damage. Karen's team produced a report, half of it fabricated, according to Lena, that claimed my pond would have killed the Karen flower population. The irony was bitter enough to choke on. The flower was gone, crushed by Karen's bulldozers, yet I was the one blamed. I started drinking too much, staying up late reading X posts from strangers who called me a hero or a fool. One night, I found a message from an anonymous account: "Karen's family lost their farm to your dad's in the 90s. Check the county records." My stomach dropped. I called Tom, who confirmed it. Karen's parents had owned a plot adjacent to ours, sold off cheap after a bad season. My dad bought it, folded it into Harlan Ranch. Suddenly, her hate made sense. This wasn't about the law, it was revenge. I confronted her at her office, a sterile government building that smelled of coffee and despair. "This is about your family, isn't it?" I said, slamming the county records on her desk. She froze, her face pale. For a moment, I thought she'd deny it, but then she laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You think you're the victim, Jake? Your dad ruined us, and now you're crying over a pond." I saw the pain in her eyes, the kind that festers for decades. I wanted to hate her, but I felt something else: pity, maybe, or just exhaustion. "I'm not my dad," I said. "And this pond could have helped us all." She looked away, and I left. The appeal failed. The judge upheld the fines, and the bank foreclosed on the ranch. I had 30 days to vacate. Sam and Lena tried to keep fighting, but I was done. I sold what cattle I had left, paid off my workers, and packed up my dad's old truck. The night before I left, I walked to the spot where the pond had been. The ground was still scarred, but a tiny green sprout caught my eye: a Karen flower, somehow alive in the wreckage. I knelt beside it, tears burning my eyes. It was too late for me, but maybe not for the land. I drove away at dawn, the ranch shrinking in my rearview mirror. Sam called, begging me to stay and fight, but I couldn't. The system had won. Karen had won. And yet, as I hit the highway, I thought about that flower, stubborn and alive. Maybe it would outlast us, Karen, the fines, the hate. I hoped so. Because in the end, that's what this was about, something small, fragile, and worth saving, even if no one else saw it.